Hello, how's it going? In this video, we are going to take this level layout, this level editor, and add a few more things. We're going to add an actual brush selector here with buttons. They won't do anything yet, but we'll hook them up later. And we're going to add some buttons here to move the map around, as well as we're going to take this big view and break it up into subviews. Let's get to it. We'll pretty much go from top to bottom, so ahead of time I'll just import all the extra components that we'll need. Okay, that's interesting. We'll get to those when we use them. We're going to have a brush selector, so I guess we'll just set up a list of the different brushes that we'll be using. Okay, that's good. And now I'm going to create a basic sort of class to store all the information for the map. So I'll have this for now. The way this will work is we'll be working with dictionaries. The keys for the dictionaries are going to be the positions in XY form, and the values for the dictionaries are going to be the underlying objects. I'm kind of bundling the wall and the door together because, well, if you have a wall somewhere, that wall cannot also be a door, so it makes sense to kind of store them in the same set. Yeah, but floors and ceilings can be roughly independent of each other. We'll have a player object. Later on we'll add other things, but we'll start with this. Okay, so back to the editor now. The initializer, this looks pretty good. We'll create everything, set the title, make the menu. We'll worry about this later, but for now we'll just set a variable to track the camera's position. That's fine. And we'll call the new map function. Awesome. So then when we go down to the new map function, at the moment it's just printing something. The map initializer will set up the blank dictionaries and everything, so we'll go with that. So I'm going to actually start with maybe the harder of these, and that is the map view. So if I run this, again, at the moment it's just one view, but I'm actually going to split this into a grid. I'm going to have my geometry in 1/4, then my floors, my ceilings, then what I'm going to call things or objects, and that's like the player and enemies and power-ups and things. So we're going to kind of have 4 views of the same level because it gets a bit easier to represent information and visualize it. Okay, so for that reason, the map view is actually, I'm going to make a different class. I'm going to call it map container, and then each of those 4 quarters is going to be a map view class. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's get into it. So this is going to be map container. Just need to reset that there. And I'm also going to reset these. So let's set it to 1000 by 1000. And the reason for that is when we quarter that, it actually gets quite small. So we want to have as much space as possible. So then if I look at these other ones, this is 50, 150, so that's 200 so far. So I'm going to set this to a height of 800. It's going to complain right now, so we'll just go back to the map view, and I'll make that the map container. It's looking all right. And just run that. And yep, it's a little big, but acceptable. On a higher resolution screen, this would be fine. This screen is higher resolution. I've just bounced it down to a lower resolution for recording purposes, so this should be okay. All right. So now this map container is going to set its layout. So we'll go ahead and do that. By the way, when we go to create a Q widget, we have a bunch of different initializers. This is an overloaded function definition. So we can actually click through and see the different options, or we can control click and go down here, see that we have, these are overloaded initializers. We have all of these different initializers that we can call. No, that's fine. Just as an example, in this case, I'm going to go with red, green, blue, all being integers between 0 and 255. Okay, cool. So we have that. So this has created the widgets. We'll then need to set a layout and add them to the layout. For this, I'm using our grid layout. We don't need to put anything there, that's fine. And then when we add a widget, arguments that, again, we have some overloaded functions. I'm going to go with this one here. So we'll add the widget, then we'll indicate the row and column that it goes in, and that's fine. Yeah, I don't need that. Yep, that's one we'll go with. So we'll say add the geometry view at row 0, column 0. And so on and so on. We're basically setting up a 2x2 grid, and yeah, Qt does a pretty good job of setting up the positions. Now we don't need a paint event anymore because this is really just a holder. Cool, so that's done. Then we go to the map view, and this one's going to need to be beefed up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to also take variadic arguments, in other words, optional arguments, because I want to pass in a title and a color, but I may not necessarily have that information. Does that make sense? So what I'll do is, I guess it is important to store the width and height. We'll use that later when we're drawing the grid. And we're going to need a layout as well. What will we? No, we will not. I'm just looking at my notes. That should not be there. We do not need a layout for this. It's just a simple canvas, basically. Okay, so keyword arguments is a dictionary. So what we need to do is we need to check if each of these arguments are present, if they were passed in. So we'll say if color is in the keyword arguments, then access that. And the way we access that is by putting in the key to the dictionary, and that'll get it out. But then it's a really good idea to include an else statement as well. Something like that. And what else we have? If title. There we have it. That's good. Okay, cool. So now let's make it super simple. Here for the color, we'll put in self color. Fingers crossed, let's try that out. Huh. Well, that's not a good sign. Have I missed something perhaps? Yes, I have. I need to set that layout. So I'll go self, set layout. There we go. That adds everything. There we go. Okay. Yep. So we do have those 4 different views coming in. And this color is just to test that it's actually working. We can get rid of that now. That's fine. Maybe not just yet. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add text. So we go painter, draw text. We're going to draw. This is what we need the Q point F for. So this is a floating point coordinate. And it's all relative to the widget. So this will be 10 away from the top left, 20 down from the top left. We'll put in self-title. And there we have it. We can see here, but it's not always very visible. So the next thing we want to do is we want to change the text color. And the way we do that is we configure the pen. So we'll go pen. We want color, which is a Q color. So we'll say yeah, just make it white. And yeah, that's it. So run that. Now we can see it, but of course the text is a little small, so we can control the text as well by setting the font. There we have that, run that. And that's more visible. And there are other options we can set, but this is looking okay. I'm happy with this. Okay, so now I'm going to just get rid of those background colors. And this should still work. Excellent. We now have the default black. Okay, that's fine. So the next thing I want to do is each of these will be a grid. So I'll go in here and construct a grid for each of them, and I'll give the grid coordinates, and yeah, we'll take it from there. Okay, we've got that, and then we'll draw text. Okay, right. So for each point, we'll go 4 pixels to the right of it, and we'll be at the bottom of the screen, maybe 8 pixels up from the bottom. Or what could be going on here? Well, remember, of course, that we have to set the line, otherwise we're drawing in black. So we'll do that again. That's working, but it's looking a little jarring because the grid line is the same color as the text. So we can actually get around that pretty easily. We'll just set it to white for the text, and then we'll set it to a darker color for the grid lines. So now we draw that, and yep, it doesn't clash with the text, and yeah, we can see it just fine. That's looking good. Okay, so we'll duplicate that code and make the Y as well. Okay, that's looking good. And we can run that now. And yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit messy here at the bottom, but you know what? this is a tool, doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be good enough for us to be able to use it to make stuff. And we'll make a map controller here, which lets us move the camera around anyway, so it doesn't matter if we can't see that origin just perfect. Okay, it's probably good enough. Also, this is going down, which is a little funky, but that's the way arrays work, so I'm happy with that. All right, the next part is I want to make a brush selector and want to make the map controller. So we'll get onto that. Okay, just checking this here. So we've got a label that says brush selector, but I want to put, and it's in a horizontal box layout, so I want to put a button to the left, button to the right. For this, I went ahead and downloaded some files. So if you pop into the graphics folder here, we'll have each of these arrows, which just, they pretty much are what they look like. We'll be using those for our grid things. So we want to load this in with create a pixel map with it. So we go graphics and then file name. Then we also put in the file extension. Now, if you run this right now, Qt will complain and says, hey, we need something else. We need text in a string. So we just pass in an empty string and that counts. All right, so we have that. Then we'll just go ahead and make the right button. Then we can go ahead and add those. Okay, that's looking good. We can run that, and yeah, perfect. Brush selector. Okay, so I'm going to set this up so that we are using the brushes that we had before. So I'll say, okay, make a brush index, and then we'll use that in this bit here. Perfect. Run that. Yep. Walls. Okay. Later on, when we hook these up to functionality, it will then cycle through. Awesome. Okay, so last thing we need to do for this video is set up the map controller. So we can leave the property editor. We won't touch that right now. We will look at the map controller. Okay, so I'm going to change the layout. There's a bunch of different ways we could do this. We could essentially draw triangles onto a canvas, kind of like I did with the map view, but here I'm just going to set up a grid. This grid will be 3 by 3, and we'll put buttons selectively into that. Okay, so I'm just copy pasting right now. That's fine. So it just now we have these 4 buttons, and then we need to add them. And again, we're doing a 3 by 3, but we're not filling in all the spots. So try to visualize this on a 3 by 3 grid, but on the top row, we just have the move up, that's in the center. In the middle row, we have left and right. Left is in column 0, right is in column 2, and yeah, that's it. So now I can, there we go. We've got that set up there. So again, we'll hook this up to functionality, and this will change the position of the view that we're looking at, and it will shift everything around. So we'll have a nicely dynamic level editor. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. I reckon there'll be about 7 videos in this series because it gets a little bit involved, maybe. But yeah, that'll be it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.